I awaken to the gentle hum of early light filtering through delicate curtains, the soft glow dancing on the faded wood floor of my modest new apartment. The space, tucked away in a small town of a bustling American suburb, carries a subtle charm of both new beginnings and cherished memories. My eyes wander to the antique mirror hanging on the wall, a relic that seems to hold whispered stories of bygone eras. In its reflective surface, I catch a glimpse of my own weariness, mixed with an unspoken hope for transformation. Today, the mirror does more than reflect my image. It reflects the quiet turmoil stirring inside me as the anniversary of my marriage to Brandon looms ever closer. As I rise, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee blends with the crisp scent of morning air that slips through a slightly ajar window. In the solitude of this new space, each step I take reverberates with the echoes of the past. Memories of gentle mornings spent in shared laughter with Brandon intrude upon the calm, a stark reminder of the days when our hearts beat in unison. A brief, impersonal message from him, a note of a business trip, arrives on my phone. Its brevity a harsh contrast to the elaborate warmth of our earlier days. In that moment, the once comforting routine begins to feel hollow, as if the life I had known is slowly fading into the background of a rapidly shifting present. I pad over to the small kitchen, my footsteps soft on the worn hardwood, and begin preparing a simple breakfast. The clink of utensils and the sizzle of butter in the pan create a small symphony that accompanies my swirling thoughts. I wonder about the promise of a new day in a new place, yet the weight of familiarity and loss tugs at my spirit. Outside, the first chirps of birds seem to carry secret messages of renewal, yet inside, my heart hesitates. A quiet battle between the comfort of routine and the allure of change. This morning in my new apartment marks the beginning of an unexpected chapter. The pristine walls and sparse furnishings speak of opportunities to reinvent, to reclaim a version of myself that has long been subdued. While the anticipation of tomorrow's uncertainties trembles on the edge of my thoughts, I can't help but feel that every ray of sunlight carries with it the promise of something new, a future that might finally be written by my own hand. Morning light continues its steady advance as I settle into the kitchen, the warmth of the freshly brewed coffee offering a small, reliable comfort amid the subtle disquiet of my thoughts. The clatter of crockery and the aromatic steam rising from the pan blend into an unintentional meditation on the life that once was, and the one slowly emerging from the echoes of my memories. I carefully slice a piece of toast, its crisp edges a gentle reminder of life's fragile transitions, while my mind drifts to the many mornings shared with Brandon. In those earlier years, every breakfast was an unspoken vow. A quiet exchange of smiles, soft murmurs of affection, and the seamless intertwining of two lives that seemed destined to remain intertwined. Today, as I methodically prepare my solitary meal, the absence of his presence casts an unmistakable shadow. His terse text message, a brief mention of a business trip, hangs in the air like an unanswered question, stirring a mix of melancholy and anticipation for change. The echo of our laughter and conversation, once a familiar backdrop to these moments, now competes with a deepening awareness that life rarely adheres to its well-worn paths. Each movement in the kitchen feels almost deliberate, as if every action is an effort to reclaim a sense of control that has been quietly slipping away. I pause occasionally, gazing out the window where the world is already stirring with unbridled energy. Neighbors greeting one another, the distant rumble of a morning commute. And I wonder how these fleeting snapshots of community might eventually weave into the fabric of my own story. The scent of toast and coffee merges with the soft hum of distant conversations, conjuring images of better times and a lingering hope for rediscovered joy. There is a bittersweet irony in the solitude of these moments. The very routine that once anchored my existence now seems to underscore a looming inevitability of change. As I sit down to eat, I find myself questioning the nature of routine itself. Is it a sanctuary of stability? Or does it silently become a barrier, a trap that confines us to lives we no longer desire? The gentle clinking of utensils against the bowl becomes a backdrop to my introspection, a constant reminder that, despite the outward semblance of normalcy, a profound internal shift is underway. This morning ritual, imbued with both comfort and a subtle yearning for transformation, is a quiet prelude to the unfolding narrative of my life. Each bite, each sip, carries with it a memory of what was, and a whisper of what might yet be. As I finish my breakfast, the lingering flavors of coffee and toast seem to herald the onset of an unexpected day, one where the quiet solitude might eventually give way to encounters that promise renewal, and where the gentle stirring of past emotions makes room for the daring promise of a future shaped entirely on my own terms. Today, as I step out into the cool morning air in search of the daily newspaper, a serendipitous moment unfolds on the narrow staircase of our modest building. The soft light of dawn casts gentle shadows on the worn steps, and there, standing by the door to the lobby, is Caleb, my new neighbor, whose presence is as unexpected as it is refreshing. He had only recently moved into our shared home, and yet his cheerful greeting carries the warmth of familiarity, as if he were an old friend rather than a stranger stepping into a new chapter of life. Caleb's smile, genuine and unforced, disarms the lingering melancholy that has shadowed my recent mornings. His eyes, bright with an openness that seems to embrace the world, mirror a quiet optimism that I hadn't felt in a long time. As he exchanges a few casual words with me about the trivialities of our daily routines, the unpredictability of the weather, the idiosyncrasies of our building's creaking stairs, there's an unspoken invitation in his demeanor, urging me to see the beauty hidden in the mundane. In that fleeting conversation, every word feels significant, as if the universe has conspired to align our paths at just the right moment. Caleb's gentle humor and the ease with which he discusses everyday details remind me that life often holds small surprises, waiting patiently to be discovered. The encounter is simple yet profound, a brief interlude that disrupts my habitual solitude and hints at the possibility of forging a connection that transcends the ordinary. As I continue up the stairs, I find myself glancing back, savoring the memory of his encouraging smile. There's something comforting in knowing that new beginnings often come wrapped in the guise of unexpected meetings. In that moment, I feel a quiet resolve stirring within me, a realization that while the past may be marred by routine and fading memories, the present holds the promise of fresh encounters and uncharted emotions. Returning to my apartment, the echo of our brief conversation lingers. I can't help but replay his sincere laughter and the subtle optimism in his words, feeling as though they've sparked a hidden part of me long dormant. In the midst of familiar surroundings and the predictable rhythm of daily life, Caleb's presence offers a glimpse of an alternative narrative, one where the unexpected is embraced and the prospect of connection is met with genuine curiosity. As the door closes behind me, I carry with it a renewed sense of possibility, quietly acknowledging that sometimes the smallest encounters can open the door to a much larger transformation. Returning to the quiet confines of my apartment after that brief yet uplifting encounter, I find solace in the stillness that greets me. The day unfolds slowly as I sink into the rhythm of familiar tasks, each one a deliberate effort to fill the void left by lingering uncertainty. With Brandon's absence weighing heavily on my thoughts, every mundane action feels like a meditation on a life gradually unraveling. I set about tidying the living room, running my fingers along the worn fabric of the sofa, and each touch becomes a reminder of the shared moments now replaced by a hollow silence. In the solitude of these hours, the steady tick of the old wall clock echoes like a metronome for my restless mind. I navigate my daily routine with an air of detachment, each step methodically planned yet imbued with a quiet longing for something beyond the ordinary. The silence is profound, punctuated only by the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional distant murmur from the street below. It is in this stillness that I confront the duality of my existence, the external semblance of calm and the internal storm of emotions that refuse to be silenced. Thoughts of Brandon flicker in my mind like shadows in a half-lit room. I remember the early days when his presence was a constant, his laughter a warm backdrop to every moment. Now, his brief message about yet another business trip has become a symbol of the growing distance between us. It is not so much the absence of his physical presence that unsettles me, but the creeping realization that the life we built together is gradually dissolving into routine. I ponder whether the daily repetition of a familiar schedule might be concealing a deeper dissatisfaction, a truth I have long ignored. As the hours pass, I find myself moving from one task to the next with a quiet resignation. Yet, beneath this resignation simmers an unspoken desire for change, a longing for an awakening that could shatter the constraints of this well-worn path. The solitude of the afternoon provides ample space for introspection, forcing me to confront the unsettling question: am I content with this measured existence, or is there a hidden yearning to reclaim parts of myself that have been eclipsed by complacency? The interior of my apartment, with its soft shadows and muted colors, mirrors the internal landscape of my thoughts. Both are in need of renewal. I begin jotting down fleeting reflections in a small, battered notebook, each word a tentative step toward a truth that has been buried under layers of routine. Even as the day wears on and the sky outside transitions from a soft blue to a dusky gray, I am left with the lingering sense that change, however gradual, is inevitable. This quiet period of isolation is not merely a void to be endured, but a fertile ground where the seeds of transformation are slowly taking root, promising that the familiar may one day give way to a new and uncharted reality. As dusk settles over the town, the lingering hues of amber and lavender paint the sky in a way that promises both mystery and solace. After a long day of quiet introspection and mundane tasks, an unexpected message from Caleb punctuates the calm, an invitation to join him for an evening walk in the city park, where a vibrant fair has taken over a small section of the urban landscape. The message arrives in a soft, unassuming tone that contrasts sharply with the day's earlier solitude, a gentle reminder that the world is still brimming with possibility. I find myself hesitating at first, caught in the balance between the comfort of my familiar routines and the allure of a spontaneous adventure. The fair, with its twinkling lights and soft strains of live music, seems to beckon me from a distance. It promises a departure from the drab monotony of my day, a momentary escape into a realm where the mundane can transform into something magical. Before I know it, my resolve solidifies. I will step outside and embrace this unexpected detour. Pulling on a light jacket, I leave behind the quiet of my apartment and step into the cool, gentle evening air. The streets, bathed in the soft glow of street lamps, lead me toward the park with a calm inevitability. As I approach the park's entrance, I see Caleb waiting near a small kiosk adorned with strings of fairy lights. His presence, so genuine and welcoming, eases the remnants of my internal reservations. The slight smile that curves his lips seems to convey not only the warmth of his invitation, but also an unspoken understanding of the subtle shifts that have been unfolding within me. Together, we begin to stroll along a winding path lined with freshly bloomed flowers and small stalls boasting local crafts and seasonal treats. The fair is alive with murmurs of cheerful conversation, gentle laughter, and the rustle of autumn leaves dancing in the evening breeze. Every step forward is punctuated by the quiet excitement of rediscovering the world beyond the familiar confines of my apartment. Caleb's company brings a lightness to the atmosphere, a reassuring presence that quietly challenges the day's earlier sorrow with a hint of something new and transformative. As we walk, the vibrant energy of the fair envelops us. Caleb points out the intricacies of hand-painted trinkets, and his observations carry an earnest curiosity that makes even the simplest details seem extraordinary. I listen intently, absorbing his perspective, as if each word he utters is an invitation to see life in fresh, unguarded colors. In this moment, the fair is not merely a gathering of sights and sounds, but a canvas on which the possibility of change is delicately painted. The path leads us through softly illuminated lanes where the chatter of nearby fairgoers mingles with the gentle strains of a street performer's melody. With every step, my internal resistance softens, replaced by an emerging sense of possibility and quiet liberation. The evening, filled with subtle promise, becomes an unfolding narrative, one where the simple act of stepping outside my comfort zone begins to rewrite the script of my life. The evening unfolds as a gentle interlude, a delicate pause between the day's recollections and the uncharted night. After our stroll through the vibrant fair, Caleb and I find ourselves lingering on a quiet bench tucked away near a cluster of blooming cherry trees. The soft murmur of distant conversations and the rhythmic patter of a gentle rain against the pavement form a soothing backdrop, inviting me to let down the guarded walls I have so long maintained. Seated side by side, we share a silence that speaks louder than words. A silence woven with mutual understanding and the promise of a new chapter. Caleb's eyes, reflecting the soft gleam of streetlights, seem to quietly inquire about the untold stories hidden in the creases of my smile. I find myself opening up, hesitantly at first, recounting fragments of a life marked by routine and loss. My words, carried on the cool night breeze, float in the space between us, mingling with the rustling leaves overhead. In response, Caleb speaks of his own journey, of leaving behind familiar comforts in search of a more vibrant existence. His voice is calm yet infused with an earnest desire to embrace life's unpredictability. With every shared revelation, the gap between our worlds narrows, leaving behind an unspoken acknowledgement of the deep-seated need for change that binds us together. There is a palpable warmth in our exchange, a delicate interplay of vulnerability and hope. As the conversation drifts from past reminiscences to future possibilities, the ambiance seems to shift subtly. The distant strains of a lone musician playing a soft melody on an acoustic guitar drift closer, underscoring the emotional cadence of the night. In that moment, the ordinary transforms into something quietly extraordinary. The air, filled with the aroma of wet earth and blooming flowers, seems to carry a secret promise of renewal and discovery. Caleb reaches out to tuck a loose strand of hair behind my ear, a gesture so simple yet filled with tenderness that it momentarily erases the distance between us. I notice the care in his touch, the unspoken empathy that resonates with the rhythm of my own heartbeat. It is not a moment of overt declaration, but rather a subtle acknowledgement, a silent vow that speaks of change and the courage to embrace it. As the night deepens and the rain lightens to a soft drizzle, we remain on that bench, sharing fragments of our dreams and uncertainties. Each word, each glance builds an unspoken narrative of transformation. In that quiet interlude, I begin to sense that the boundaries of my familiar life are shifting, that every shared moment with Caleb is a small step away from a past defined by routine. There is a stirring within me, a delicate anticipation of a future where honesty and new beginnings can coexist, even if it means challenging the life I once thought was irrevocably set in stone. In the serene hush of the night, beneath the glow of gentle streetlights, I allow myself to believe that change, though gradual, might just be the key to rediscovering a part of me that had long been lost. The following morning unfolds slowly, as if time itself has taken a gentle pause. I wake to the muted sound of rain tapping softly against the window, each drop a quiet reminder of the unresolved emotions stirring within me. The night's encounter with Caleb lingers like a half-remembered melody, gently urging me to reconsider the boundaries of my own heart. As I move about the familiar spaces of my apartment, I find that the rooms are not merely containers of solitude, but sanctuaries where old habits are questioned and new dreams quietly take shape. Sitting at my small desk with a steaming mug of tea, I open my battered notebook, a trusted companion to my innermost thoughts, and begin to write. Each word that spills onto the paper feels both liberating and disconcerting, as though I am peeling away layers that have long concealed my true self. The lines trace not just the events of a recent day, but also the deep-rooted conflict between the expectations that have defined my past and the fragile hope of an alternative future. Memories of shared mornings with Brandon emerge in soft focus, contrasting sharply with the delicate warmth of my encounter with Caleb. The difference between those worlds is not one of mere presence or absence, but of an emotional resonance that I had long thought unreachable. Outside, the sky remains overcast, its persistent grayness mirroring the subdued hues of my inner landscape. Yet, even in the quiet gloom, I perceive hints of color, a subtle promise that transformation is possible. The raindrops, as they slide down the window pane, seem to carry away remnants of a life lived out of habit. In their wake, I am left with a fragile openness, a space where old grief and newfound hope intertwine. With each stroke of my pen, I document my tentative steps toward a life reimagined, one that dares to embrace vulnerability without fear of judgment. By mid-morning, I resolve to step outside and let the cool air reaffirm my decision to move forward. The streets, slick with the remnants of last night's rain, are quiet and reflective, much like my own state of mind. As I wander along a familiar sidewalk, I observe the everyday rhythms of the town, the soft murmur of passing cars, the murmur of neighbors beginning their day, and I sense that even the smallest details can hold meaning. Today, the world appears both achingly familiar and profoundly different, as though it too is awakening to possibilities previously unnoticed. In this unfolding moment of clarity, I begin to understand that the path to renewal is paved with both acceptance and courage. Each step I take is an affirmation of my intent to seek a life where every sunrise might offer a chance to be truly present, not merely as a reflection of what was, but as a promise of what could be. Later that day, as the afternoon sun recedes behind a thin veil of clouds, I find myself immersed in the delicate preparations for the upcoming anniversary celebration, a milestone that has always been a mixed blessing in my life. The familiar hum of the household takes on a different note today, laden with an undercurrent of expectation and concealed emotions. In the living room, meticulously arranged with subtle decor meant to evoke a sense of timeless elegance, Brandon's presence is felt more as an obligation than as a comfort. Every carefully placed flower and every glistening ornament seems to whisper a reminder of promises once made, now shadowed by a growing distance. I move quietly through the house, my hands steady as I arrange small tokens of celebration on the table. A set of elegant glasses, a delicate vase of fresh blossoms, and a handwritten note that Brandon left on the kitchen counter earlier. Though the physical details of the celebration are in place, my inner world feels anything but orderly. With each passing moment, as I set the table and smooth over the last creases in the linen, I am acutely aware of the duality that defines my current existence. On one side lies the carefully constructed facade of a perfect life, and on the other, the unspoken truths and hidden thoughts that have begun to erode the foundation of our long-standing routine. In the quiet solitude of the afternoon, I allow my mind to wander through the memories of anniversaries past, those moments filled with shared laughter, tender glances, and heartfelt promises. Yet, as I place the final decorative touches, a different narrative begins to emerge. The brushstrokes of the past, though still vibrant in my recollection, now compete with a subtle, almost imperceptible longing for change. It is a yearning for authenticity, a desire to reconcile the obligations of duty with the need to nurture the quiet desires that have, until now, remained buried beneath layers of routine. As I pause to survey the finished setting, a bittersweet sensation washes over me. The celebration, with all its outward symbols of unity and continuity, feels like an intricate performance. I find myself questioning whether the elegance of our shared history is enough to sustain the present, where every smile conceals a hidden turmoil and every gesture is weighted with unspoken reservations. Amid the preparations, my thoughts drift to Caleb, whose recent presence has stirred emotions I thought long dormant. His unexpected kindness and the gentle reminders of a life unburdened by pretense make the contrast all the more stark. In that quiet moment of reflection, I acknowledge the truth I have been reluctant to face. The anniversary is not merely a commemoration of a shared past, but also a precipice upon which the future teeters. The polished surfaces of our celebration hide the raw emotions beneath, and while the world sees the image of a perfect union, I know that beneath that veneer lies a heart yearning for change. With a silent resolve, I decide to carry these hidden thoughts with me, a quiet testament to the possibility of a life reimagined, even as I fulfill the roles expected of me in this carefully choreographed display of unity. The day after the anniversary preparations, a subtle stillness fills the apartment, one that seems to mark the end of a chapter and the beginning of another, unspoken and uncertain. I wake to the gentle rustle of early morning routines, the calm punctuated only by the soft hum of the city coming to life. While the house still bears the remnants of yesterday's careful adornments, there's an air of quiet disarray now, a mirror of my internal landscape where old sentiments mingle with a cautious anticipation of change. During breakfast, the silence at the table is less a void and more an unintentional conversation between my thoughts and the lingering echoes of celebration. The familiar clink of cutlery is interspersed with introspective moments. I question whether the symbolism of the anniversary, though meticulously orchestrated, was ever enough to mask the slow drifting apart of two lives. Each bite of toast, each sip of tea, becomes a reminder of promises made long ago, now softened by the passage of time and the weight of unspoken desires. In the midst of this reflective morning, a message from Brandon arrives. Brief, measured, and devoid of the intimacy that once characterized our exchanges. The tone, neutral and distant, leaves me with a bittersweet realization. While he continues to hold on to the roles we once cherished, I am beginning to see the contours of a life that stretches beyond those expectations. That realization is not bitter, but rather a subtle liberation, as if the dissonance of our shared past is slowly making way for a narrative that is uniquely mine. I decide to take a solitary walk later in the afternoon, venturing into parts of the town I had previously overlooked. As I stroll along tree-lined avenues, the everyday scenes, neighbors greeting one another, a busker playing a soulful tune on a quiet street corner, seem to speak of countless stories unfolding just as quietly as my own. With each step, I feel the weight of yesterday's conventions lighten, replaced by the gentle thrill of embracing uncertainty. The urban landscape, vibrant with everyday authenticity, reminds me that life rarely conforms to our scripted plans. It is full of unexpected turns, each one offering a fleeting chance to rediscover joy in the ordinary. As shadows lengthen and I return home, the subtle stirrings of new emotion are undeniable. The echoes of Caleb's warm presence, the reflective silence of the previous day, and the muted disappointment in Brandon's measured words have all converged into a quiet determination. In the solitude of my study, I open my journal once more and begin to write with an honesty that feels both raw and necessary. Every line that flows from my pen is a step toward acknowledging the reality of my inner world, a space where grief, hope, and the yearning for something uncharted blend into a poignant mosaic of self-discovery. This quiet afternoon, marked by introspection and a slow acceptance of change, leaves me with an unsettling yet invigorating sense of possibility. The familiar routines no longer bind me. Instead, they serve as a backdrop for the new narrative I am daring to write. A narrative where each moment is a choice, and each choice brings me closer to understanding who I might become when I no longer fear the unknown. In the soft light of an early afternoon, I retreat into the quiet solitude of my apartment, a space that now feels less like a repository of old memories and more like a blank canvas waiting for new beginnings. With a gentle resolve, I settle at my small desk where my well-worn diary lies open, its pages eager to absorb the inner revelations of a heart on the verge of transformation. Today, every written word feels like a deliberate step toward reclaiming a life that had long been subdued by routine and unspoken expectations. The familiar scratch of my pen against paper is oddly soothing, each line a silent vow to honor my deepest desires. I reflect on the complex tapestry of my recent days, days filled with moments of quiet introspection, fleeting encounters, and the stark contrasts between the comfort of a known past and the tantalizing promise of something different. In the delicate balance between regret and hope, I begin to articulate the aspirations that have been nudging at me from the shadows, the yearning to be true to myself, to forge a path that allows me to embrace both responsibility and the right to personal fulfillment. As I write, I revisit the tender fragments of the previous evenings, the warmth of Caleb's smile, the serene stillness of a rainy morning, the bittersweet taste of solitude after a day marked by the echo of old promises. There is a gravity in these recollections, a persistent whisper that the familiar may no longer serve as an anchor, but instead as a gentle reminder of what I must leave behind. My words on the paper become both a confession and a roadmap, mapping out tentative plans to pursue interests and connections that were once too quietly tucked away in the corners of my heart. In this act of honest self-expression, I confront the underlying guilt that accompanies the realization of my own needs. A guilt born not of malice, but of the recognition that to grow, one must sometimes step away from well-worn roles and expectations. The pages of my diary absorb each truth, each delicate admission of vulnerability, and every quiet determination to create space for a more authentic existence. I envision days filled with small, deliberate changes, long walks in nature that allow for genuine reflection, afternoons dedicated to hobbies that bring a spark of joy, and conversations with those who encourage me to see beyond the familiar confines of obligation. By the time I close my diary, there is a palpable shift within me, a tentative clarity that illuminates a path forward. The careful words, written with both trepidation and hope, have not only chronicled my inner journey, but have also set the stage for a future where I dare to live fully and freely. In the gentle silence that follows, I sense that each entry is a promise that, despite the uncertainties ahead, I am finally ready to plan a new life, one that honors my truth and allows me to be seen in all its unguarded, delicate authenticity. The final rays of a fading afternoon spill through the window of my apartment as I sit before a canvas of possibilities, each brushstroke in my mind hinting at the future I am now daring to imagine. Today feels like the quiet culmination of all the subtle shifts that have carried me from a life once defined solely by routine and obligation into a realm where my own voice grows stronger, echoing with the promise of authenticity. In the soft, forgiving light of dusk, I find myself reflecting on the intricate tapestry of moments, each one a delicate blend of loss and renewal, regret and hope, that has led me to this defining juncture. In the wake of the anniversary and the days that followed, the air in my apartment seems charged with an unspoken understanding. The old life, with its familiar rhythms and carefully maintained appearances, is receding, making space for something vibrant and new. I close my diary with the finality of a promise kept, a promise not to run from the truth within, but to embrace it, even if it means treading on uncertain ground. Every entry, every silent confession penned in solitude, has become a stepping stone toward a life where I can be both responsible and unapologetically true to myself. The quiet now is not empty. It hums with a gentle energy that reassures me that change, though sometimes unsettling, is the precursor to growth. I recall the tender exchanges with Caleb, whose unexpected kindness stirred forgotten parts of my soul, and the distant, measured words from Brandon that now serve as a reminder of a past I am learning to let go. With each memory, I feel the weight of years lift just a little, replaced by a cautious exhilaration at the thought of writing a new chapter, one where every sunrise carries the promise of reinvention, and every quiet evening whispers of dreams coming to fruition. As night deepens, I step onto the balcony, the cool air wrapping around me like a gentle embrace. In the distance, the soft hum of the town and the muted glow of streetlights mirror the fragile yet persistent light within. There is no grand resolution, no dramatic turning point. Rather, there is a steady commitment to living with clarity and compassion for myself. The journey ahead remains uncertain, woven with threads of both joy and sorrow, but I now hold the conviction that the freedom to choose my path is the most profound gift I have. In this final moment of solitude, I take a deep breath and allow the silence to affirm that I am beginning to live not as a mere participant in someone else's story, but as the author of my own. The future remains an unwritten page, rich with possibility, tempered by the lessons of the past, and I am ready to embrace it, one delicate, honest step at a time.